and welcome. So we've all heard of Macbeth, right? Shakespeare's darkest, bloodiest, most intense tragedy. But today, we're going to talk about something really interesting. The massive difference between reading the play in a quiet room and experiencing it live in a dark theater. We're going to explore why this story about ambition, guilt, and ruin, which is over 400 years old, becomes something so much more real and honestly, so much more terrifying when it jumps off the page and onto the stage. We're going to dive into what really happens in that leap from the written word to a living, breathing performance.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about that jump from page to stage. Then we'll see how actors completely transform the characters we thought we knew. After that, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of tragedy, the sights and sounds that make it work. We'll also look at how abstract symbols become terrifyingly real. And finally, we'll ask the big question: why does this play still have such a hold on us?
All right, let's get right into it. Section 1, From Page to Stage. This is all about bridging that huge gap between reading a script and watching a story unfold.
Okay, let's be real for a second. Have you ever tried to read Shakespeare and just felt completely lost? You're not alone. The language can be so dense, it feels like you're trying to solve a puzzle. You're so focused on figuring out what the words mean that this huge wall goes up between you and the actual emotion of the story. You're analyzing, not feeling.
And that right there is the fundamental difference. When you read the play, it's an intellectual exercise. It's quiet. It's analytical. You have to do all the work in your head. You're the director, the lighting guy, you're every single actor. But a performance, that's an immediate, emotional gut punch. It's a full-body, multi-sensory event with lights and sound and real people. You're not just thinking about the drama, you're dropped right into the middle of it.
Let's take this line, for example. On the page, you read it, you understand it's a huge moment for Macbeth's psyche, but now imagine you're in a dark theater. The stage is almost completely black, except for a single harsh spotlight on an actor. His hands are trembling, his voice is a broken whisper as he reaches out for this phantom weapon. All of a sudden, that line isn't just words anymore. It's pure terror, it's guilt, it's madness, all happening right in front of you. You don't just understand the meaning, you feel it in your bones.
Okay, moving on to section 2, characters beyond the words. Because a live performance doesn't just make a moment clearer, it can completely change how we see the people at the heart of the story.
So when you just read her lines, Lady Macbeth comes across as this absolute monster, right? She seems totally ruthless, just a pure, unstoppable force of ambition who bullies her husband into committing murder. You read her words and you think, okay, she's the villain. Got it.
And a line like this seems to seal the deal. I mean, she's literally calling on evil spirits to strip away her humanity, to make her cruel. On the page, it reads like a demonic prayer, a full-on commitment to evil. It's chilling.
But then you see it performed, and everything changes. A great actress doesn't just say those words. She shows you what's underneath them. You see the tension in her shoulders, the slight tremor in her hands. You realize her incredible confidence is actually a mask, a desperate performance of strength. You can see the cracks in the facade, and you start to sense this deep, hidden fragility that's growing just under the surface.
And this is where that facade completely shatters, the sleepwalking scene. When you see an actress on stage totally vulnerable, her voice cracking as she frantically tries to wash away a stain that isn't even there, it's devastating. She's not a monster anymore. She's a broken human being, utterly destroyed by her own conscience. She transforms from a villain you hate into this tragic figure you can actually feel pity for.
And what this reveals is the incredible tragic irony of the play. Their journeys move in opposite directions. It's like they're on a seesaw. As Macbeth grows more and more hardened, becoming a tyrant who feels nothing, Lady Macbeth's conscience, which seemed non-existent, awakens with a terrifying force and completely destroys her. Seeing this painful exchange of roles happen visually on stage makes it absolutely unforgettable.
So let's move on to section 3, the art of tragedy. We've talked about the actors, but what about the stage itself? We're going to look at how the tools of the theater, the lights, the sounds, the space, work together to create the play's unique atmosphere of dread.
The banquet scene is the perfect example. It's just a masterclass in building tension. Directors use everything they have. Flickering, shadowy lights, unsettling sound design that makes your skin crawl. And then there's Banquo's ghost, maybe visible only to us in Macbeth, blurring that line between what's real and what's a hallucination.
When you watch Macbeth's frantic, terrified breakdown while everyone else just looks on confused, you are no longer a spectator. You are right there, inside his paranoid, guilt-ridden mind. It's terrifying.
So why do we enjoy this? Why do we put ourselves through such an intense experience? Well, there's a word for it: catharsis. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle came up with this idea. It's the notion that by watching characters go through intense pity and fear in the safety of a theater, we get to release those same emotions from our own systems. It's like an emotional deep clean, and it's why tragedy can feel so incredibly profound.
In Macbeth, this catharsis hits you on two levels. First, there's pity. You feel for this once great man, this brave soldier, as you watch him spiral into a paranoid monster. But then comes the fear, and this is the part that gets under your skin. We feel fear because we recognize that the seed of that same ambition exists inside all of us. Seeing a real person act out that downfall makes the whole story feel uncomfortably close to home.
Okay, Section 4. Symbols brought to life. Shakespeare's plays are packed with symbols. But on stage, these abstract literary devices become concrete, tangible things you can see and hear.
Let's talk about the witches. On stage, they are just deeply unsettling, with their creepy voices, their unnatural movements. They're like a force of nature. But here's the crucial thing. They never actually make Macbeth do anything. They just plant an idea. They offer a temptation. They symbolize how just one little external suggestion can ignite a fire of ambition that was already there. They sit on that razor's edge between fate and free will, and they force us to ask, was he destined to do this? Or did they just give him the push he wanted?
And then there's the most powerful symbol in the whole play: blood. It's everywhere, but its meaning completely transforms. At the beginning of the play, blood is a good thing. It's a symbol of honor, proof that Macbeth is a brave warrior. But after the murder of Duncan, it flips. It becomes this permanent, psychological stain of guilt that can never be washed away. And by the end, with Lady Macbeth, the blood isn't even real anymore. It's imagined. But it becomes the most powerful symbol of all, a visible sign of a conscience so tormented it has driven her mad.
And this is where you really see Shakespeare's genius. He brilliantly blends the supernatural with the psychological. You have these external forces, like the witches and their prophecies, but the most terrifying things in the play, the things that truly haunt the characters, all come from within. The floating dagger, that's a projection of Macbeth's guilt. Banquo's ghost, only Macbeth can see him. That damned spot on Lady Macbeth's hand, it's all in her head. The message is clear. Our own inner demons are far more frightening than any real ghost.
So, that brings us to our final section. Why does this play endure? After all this time, why does Macbeth still feel so dangerously relevant?
419 years. Think about that for a moment. The world has changed in countless ways since this play was first performed, and yet for over 4 centuries this story has been told again and again, acting as this dark, unflinching mirror that reflects the absolute worst parts of human nature. The themes are just as powerful now as they were in Shakespeare's time.
Because when you boil it all down, Macbeth is a timeless and universal cautionary tale. Its warning is brutally simple. Ambition that isn't guided by morality, by a conscience, doesn't lead to glory or fulfillment. It leads to paranoia, to isolation, and ultimately to complete self-destruction. The real lesson here is that true power is never gained by sacrificing your humanity. It's gained by holding on to it.
And so we're left with one final haunting question. Macbeth thought he was invincible. The witches told him he couldn't be beaten until Birnam Wood. A forest literally moved to his castle. That sounds impossible, right? A guarantee. But then it happened. His enemies used branches as camouflage, and his doom marched right up to his door. And that makes you wonder, what's the Birnam Wood in our own lives? What is that huge, unexpected consequence? The one blind spot created by our own ambition that we're so sure could never happen until it does.